I misunderestimated how important it was to the establishment that they triumphed in the vote, at least, in the Oxford Union last night. It was the 90th anniversary of the infamous debate in 1933, when the House voted that they would not fight for king and country. As it happens, in 1933, if I'd been there, as I suppose I almost was, I would have voted against that motion, but I was proposing that motion last evening. The state, or the establishment really, it's invested huge amounts of effort into winning it. I invested nothing. You know me, no notes, turning up half an hour before the debate in Oxford, still reeling from many hundreds of miles of driving. And I came there ready to savage, in my inimitable way, little Ben Wallace, the Secretary of State for Defence. But he ran away. He didn't turn up, and neither did the head of the British Army, both of whom had been billed to appear, and both of whom I was ready to eviscerate. In the place of little Ben, they sent nice but dim Tobias Elwood, he of the 77th Brigade, the actual regiment of the British Army, charged with disinformation, misinforming you and disrespecting everybody else on social media. The 77th Brigade, unarmed except for their laptops. He was, oh shucks, I only went to Loughborough University. How overwhelmed I am to be here in the Oxford Union. And amongst you are many members of Parliament and at least one Prime Minister. That got him off to a half-decent start. But the other side had other weapons. Not only was I stuck, not with Tariq Ali, who was supposed to be my wingman, but two students, the first of whom thought until midnight last night she was going to be speaking on the other side of the debate. I was stuck with two students. The government side, the NATO side, had four. The president of the union, very unusually, left his chair and came to open the debate for the opposition to the motion. Then there was, nice but dim, Tobias Elwood. Then there was a surprise guest, unannounced, not on the order paper, but sitting on the front bench, supposedly being called from the floor, but not. A triple amputee from the war in Afghanistan. Very brave and eloquent young man who'd lost both of his legs and his arm. And as he lay there in the crater of the IED on which he'd stepped in Afghanistan, he had only two thoughts, he said. The first was his then 2-year-old daughter. The second was that he was dying there in the desert for you. I'm dying for a noble cause, for my king and country. This was, naturally enough, greeted with a huge standing ovation, from which point I knew that the vote was lost. I did my best. I savaged what was there to be savaged, which wasn't much, to be honest. I had been expecting cabinet opposition rather than merely the chairman of the Defence Select Committee. And I also stayed within the time limits, because that's my want. I always did in Parliament. None of the rest did. And so when you see the video, I think you'll find that I spoke well and powerfully, ending with Robert Burns' ode on the national thanksgiving. Ye hypocrites, are these your pranks? To murder men and gie God thanks? Halt, desist, and go nae further. God will no accept your thanks for murder. And then this morning I read one of the most simple profundities I've ever read from the exile whistleblower Edward Snowden in Moscow, because if he goes back to the United States, he will never see daylight, sunlight ever again. He said the whole thing depends on the people believing anything, as long as it's told to them loudly enough and often enough. And it works. Edward, it worked in the Oxford Union last night.